What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm Tony Mango, joined as always by Robert E. Felice.
Hello.
And the man who's going to be hosting, for the most part, this episode, Callum Wiggins.
Hey there.
And we're going to switch it up a little bit here. I figured that might be kind of fun. Callum is much more, not to say like, oh, you're much more passionate about AEW than I am and I hate it or anything like that, but it's just, that's your go-to promotion at the moment. And I figured, you know what, let's try to play around with the podcast a little bit this week. So we did the whole thing before, switching up the Pay-Per-Viewpoint layout for Night of Champions. We ended up, Rob and I recorded the NXT stuff right after NXT. So that was another little change. And this is another one here. So you got a whole lot of matches to break down here, Callum. But before we get into all that stuff, let me just toss out a couple plugs to remind everybody how we normally do things here. We're going to run down the whole card. We're going to talk about our predictions for everything that goes along with that, our preview in any other capacity. If there's any kind of like spoilers that we put out there, of course, we'll give you a little bit of a warning if that is the case. We'll talk about if we think that there are going to be any more matches added to there, because I think at the moment they haven't clarified any of these as the buy-in, right? I don't think so.
Tony Khan just confirmed on a media call that the Hardy match will be on the buy-in.
All right, so that was the whole thing where I was going to go, that's got to at least go in the buy-in, because there's no way that deserves to be on this whole main card. But talk about that. We'll, give our rundown of what we're most excited about, what we're not so quite excited about. And as we go along and we do that, we want to know what you have to say. So drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure that you are doing all the good stuff that you would normally do for any YouTube channel or any YouTube video that you like. It includes hitting the like button, making sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel, also ringing that little notification bell to get those email alerts of when we go live for the post shows for Night of Champions, and then the combo double shot, whatever we want to call it, Double or Nothing and NXT Battleground one. If you are also interested in taking part of the monetary funds and, pass a little spare change our way, there's a little thanks button there on YouTube, and there's also a join button. And the join button is the YouTube channel membership subscription, where you can get access to the same things as the Patreon. So if you want to listen to the Darkcast episodes that you can only listen to if you're a part of that membership, or if you want to sponsor a Pick Your Poison thing, or you just want to toss a buck a month our way, that stuff is all fantastic. So thank you for that, for anybody that's on any of those tiers. Also Redbubble and TeePublic, where you can get some merchandise. So that is my portion of the intro. And I'm going to pass the baton over to Callum.
Okay then, baton firmly in my hands. Let's get moving with this. I guess the main thing to start off with, as we would typically do for most, we would typically start talking about potential matches that we could add to this. This is already a 9-match card. But I think that the main matches would also be added to this potentially are kind of taken care of in the Battle Royal. So we'll get to talking about those and if those matches should be individual outside of the Blackjack Battle Royal when we get to that match. But I think we should start off with the one which we've now learned is going to be in, and probably the least interesting of all the matches available, is a 6-man tag team match between Ethan Page and the Guns against the Hardys and Hook, where if the Hardys win, Matt Hardy owns Ethan Page's contract. So more Hardys and more contract stuff. That's kind of the bread and butter of Tony Khan's booking philosophy almost. I can't say I'm particularly excited about this. They already did the Hardy compound match, which I thought would have been probably a better environment to do something like this. And now it's just going to be a straight up 6-man tag. I'd say Jeff and Matt aren't exactly at their peak in ring wise at the moment. The Hook stuff will be fun. He'll throw people around as per usual, and I think it's pretty obvious that the stipulation is only predicated towards the babyfaces winning. So I think I'm going to just take a wild stab in the dark and say the babyfaces are going to win this match. What do you guys think?
I would probably say that you're right, Callum. But I'd like to see no more Hardy people owning contracts, because I think we've been running that storyline for the better part of like 3 years. So I'd like to say Ethan Page pulls out the win because Scorpio Sky helps him. And I want to see Men of the Year versus the Hardy Boys. How about that? There's no money on this. How about that?
I got a confusing question here. Is it Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, and Hook?
Yes.
That is what's
spoiler.
What Wikipedia's telling me.
Spoiler, put in earmuffs. Too late, but that's what they're going to announce on Rampage.
Okay, because I have all that's written down Isaiah Cassidy.
Yeah, Isaiah Cassidy.
I was double checking this stuff before doing it, but then I just looked onto different materials and said, I guess it's going to be Hook instead. So no mid match moaning that we'll be enjoying unless he's at ringside doing it instead.
Maybe Hook lets out a little, oh yeah, like.
Is that like one of? I mean, there are a lot of contenders for it, but this must be up there for one of the worst gimmicks going right now, right?
What Isaiah Cassidy is horny? Like, yeah, I think it's not my thing.
Because, I mean, he's gone from one of the pet peeves that I had about Private Party, which was he would always scream in matches, just let out a scream, which is fine if you're a heel, but they were baby faces and he was still doing that. And now he orgasmically moans during at different points, and just think, is that supposed to get you over? Because it's not working with me.
That's not going to main event WrestleMania, right?
No. I'd be seeing brother. Was it his brother Zay, right?
He's brother Zay, yes.
But
it's not supposed to get you over. It's just supposed to get you to the finish, and I think it's done it quite nicely.
Sounds like he's getting over every single match. Yeah, this match is not something that I'm interested in, to be perfectly honest, like at all. I have not been into, I think at this point it's like the 5th or maybe the 6th Matt Hardy faction in AEW. Any kind of grouping that he's in seems to be a failure to me. So whether it's him and Jeff and the Private Party and the Firm and Andrade Family Office, and now Hook's involved in there and all. I actually didn't even watch the compound match. I was just like, I guess it was on Rampage, right?
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, all right, I'm not going to watch Rampage for that. And that should have logically been the end game of this whole thing. But even then, I don't think that I would have bothered with that during this anyway. Like, I'm really looking at this as, I'm going to see what's happening on NXT Battleground at this point, because the Hardys win and then they just mess around with Ethan Page some more. I don't know if I really want to watch that either.
So that's presumably during this match that we just talking on NXT Battleground, because
you want to listen to Peter Rosenberg talk about how he thinks Braun Breaker is going to win.
Maybe, honestly, it might actually have my attention more. Maybe they'll combine their efforts, and Sam Roberts will just be doing the moaning.
But I mean, it's fine as a buy-in match. Like, if it was on the main card, then I'd think, okay, we're extending this way too long for no particular reason. I assume it'll be accompanied by a number of other matches which were not, I guess, won't have a huge amount of importance or build going into them. I mean, we could just see something like a one-off Willow Nightingale defends her New Japan Strong Women's Championship against some randomer.
We could see that, because Tony Khan just wrapped up a media call, and I have to say one of my favorite parts of it was he really went all in on putting Willow Nightingale over and talking about how much of an asset she is. So that makes me happy as the resident Willow stan on this podcast.
But I can't think of anything else in particular that I might do, because I might as well go on to it now. The Blackjack Battle Royal for the AEW International Championship, something that we on the main card now, and something that I am very much more looking forward to.
Hell yeah.
So 21 men will battle for the AEW International Championship, currently held by Orange Cassidy. I believe this would be his 24th defense of the title. And the participants are as follows. I don't do the whole alphabetical order. I just go with the order the Wikipedia presents me. So, Orange Cassidy, of course, the champion. It is Ricky Starks, the Butcher, the Blade, Bandido, Commander, Lee Moriarty, Big Bill, Ari Daivari, Tony Nese, Chuck Taylor, Trent Beretta, Kip Sabian, Ray Phoenix, Penta El Zero Miedo, Swerve Strickland, Brian Cage, Jay White, Juice Robinson, Keith Lee, and Dustin Rhodes. So first thing, obviously just at the moment, kind of subverting away from the International Championship, two big feuds that they've been building on TV have been lumped into this match, which is whole Jay White and Juice Robinson against Ricky Starks, and then Keith Lee and Dustin Rhodes against Swerve Strickland, Brian Cage, and the Embassy. So what do you think about them being put together in this one match rather than having separate matches on the card themselves?
Before I answer that question, can I just ask, is that all 21 or do we have some spots to fill?
I believe that only 20 names have been actually announced for it, so we might have, I'll just count them up quickly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
It's 21, I think, if you count Orange Cassidy.
Yeah, it's 21, yeah. Yeah, so we have 21, yeah.
That is fantastic news, because then my answer becomes, I think one of the gentlemen in those feuds will likely walk away with the belt. And I think that's fine.
What do you think, Tony, about like not having the long-awaited Keith Lee versus Swerve Strickland match, or having a rematch between Ricky Starks and Jay White?
There's three parts of that for me. One being Ricky Starks and Jay White should have been on this card. I don't think that they should have done that on Dynamite and then been like, all right, good enough, just toss you in there. I would much rather them be on the card than obviously the Ethan Page and Guns against the Hardys and Hook match, or perfectly honest, some of the other matches as well, but some of them just take priority because there's like a title involved. But that's weird to me. The Keith Lee and Swerve thing, that's been going on for how many months now that they've been teasing the whole... I mean, if you go back to the idea that they've been a tag team that didn't get along and they were teasing fighting each other back then, you're going practically a year at this point, probably.
Yeah, I'm going a year at this point.
But that, I wouldn't have been really super interested, but if that would have been on the buy-in, then I would have been cool with that. But I'm even more confused that the trios titles aren't on this card and that you don't have any of the people that are in there tossed in this match. Because to me, it makes more sense to almost have like, say, Malachi Black is in this instead of the Butcher or something, So that's already kind of confusing unless they're going to add another match on there.
My argument in defense of that is they're doing something so unique and so fun with the House of Black that I think they're okay just being a trios team, not diverting any attention with getting any singles titles, and maybe making that a staple of Dynamite and later Collision.
But that also means that we don't have like the Acclaimed isn't in here, or some other bigger names that I would think. I don't have anything necessarily against like Lee Moriarty or the Butcher and the Blade or Kip Sabian or whatever, but I'm like, yeah, I think I would have prioritized a couple other people over some of these, and I also kind of feel like they're losing out a little bit on the idea that all 21 men have been announced instead of some kind of a surprise like the Casino Battle Royals used to be, which that in and of itself, I mean, they're going with Blackjack Battle Royal now. So are we done with the Casino Battle Royal?
No.
I mean, they haven't been, I don't think they've been really forthcoming about what the actual... I presume this is going to, because it's 21 men involved, that it's going to follow a similar pattern to the Casino one, but maybe it's just 21 men start and they've just gone with 20, called it Blackjack because there's 21 people involved. It's not a Jake Roberts thing, we have 22 instead.
Well, where's Lance Archer? Maybe that's the hook here.
No, the hook's in the other match.
Yeah.
God, it's obvious.
But that actually has reminded me, and thanks for bringing it up, about the whole the match. One of the matches that probably should have been taking place or has also been built towards seems to be the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass against House of Black for the Trios Championships. And I'd say it doesn't necessarily have to be on this card, because you do need to have big matches to promote for your TV shows as well, especially with Collision coming up soon, so you're going to have to spread out big matches for multiple different shows as well as your pay-per-views. But yeah, maybe they are saving that for like next week's Dynamite or a Dynamite down the
They're
line.
They're probably going to do it at the buy-in because the Acclaimed are on Rampage in a 6-man, so they're probably going to do it at the buy-in.
And there are some other people. There are some other people too that are missing on this that I would have thought would have been put in here, like Powerhouse Hobbs is not on the card. Miro made his return and he hasn't been booked yet. Roosh could have been thrown in here.
I think some people have been left out, I guess because they've already... I mean, it doesn't really make sense when you have people like Trent Barrera and Kip Sabian, who are people that Orange Cassidy has defeated in title matches. But I guess like certain people have been left out because he has recently defeated them, or it may be a bit too fresh in the memory. But yeah, I think Roosh would have been an obvious choice for this one. Like, you don't need, like, Tony Nese doesn't need to be in this match. For all, like, as good as he can be in the ring, like,
he's a top free agent. He's sitting in the front row. I mean, come on, it's Tony Nese.
I mean, there are people that I'm happy to see in it just because they'll have some fun spots like Commander and Bandito. I don't think either of them are going to win, but they'll do some cool things in the ring. I think this does. I think, as Rob alluded to earlier, this comes down to either Orange Cassidy retaining, or it'll go to one of the people within these feuds that have been converged within this battle royal. So you're looking at probably Orange Cassidy or one of Ricky Stark, Swerve Strickland, Keith Lee, and Jay White.
See, I'm leaning much more towards Orange Cassidy retaining here because I feel like he's had such a good title reign of just kind of, at this point, I mean, he's, with all these 20-something title defenses, they keep telling the story that he's just barely retaining over all these guys. It means more to me if he were to lose a legit match than if he just happens to be tossed over the top rope. I'd rather see, like, Jay White, like, pin him and for people to be like, oh, boo, If he loses this here, it's going to feel like they did it to kind of protect him a little bit, and I don't know. To me, this seems more like the transition into him losing. Like he beats 20-something people, and then he beats 20 people, and then the next episode of Dynamite, like maybe it's down to Jay White and Orange Cassidy, and Ricky Starks helps Orange Cassidy distract Jay White, and that's why he does that. So then Jay White challenges Orange Cassidy and beats him or something along those lines.
So there is a part of me that thinks that they want to protect him, though. And I think for like the last month, Callum, every time he wins, he just goes to Renee and just goes, I'm tired. I'm so tired. I would love it if he got in the ring, looked at the 20 guys, and said, nope, over the ropes I go. I'm Orange Cassidy. I don't care. See you later, everybody. And then Jay White wins, because Jay White, quite frankly, to me, it comes down to Jay White or Swerve. I think a heel is absolutely winning this belt.
Then Orange Cassidy, or MJF looks at Orange Cassidy and goes, damn, I could have just paid him to lose. It would have been so much easier.
I think Jay White is too big to have been used in a non-main event capacity as of yet. I know AEW is stacked, but Jay White deserves to be in that discussion. You know what I'm saying? So he needs a major win, and I think he can do a good job in helping continue to elevate the championship.
I think personally I'm going to follow Tony's logic and go with Orange Cassidy retaining. I think I would agree that I think you need him to lose getting pinned or made to submit. And that would be a bit more of a fitting end for this excellent reign that he's had so far. I don't want to see it end anyway, so I'd be happy for him to just retain and then to keep holding it for another month or two, because his matches are great and he's been an awesome champion. If it had to go to someone else, I would personally go with Swerve. I do obviously very much enjoy Jay White and think that he should be positioned as a big star, but I think there is more life to the Ricky Starks and Jay White feud that doesn't need a championship involved, whereas I think to add interest to Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee, having Swerve as champion would be a big way to elevate that. And I also think Swerve is excellent as well. And I think you need to establish the embassy by having them all hold titles. That would be a good way of doing that as well. So I'm going to say Orange Cassidy retains, and then following like the last elimination, he gets punked out or attacked or called out by somebody post the Battle Royal, and that sets up whoever your opponent is that will eventually beat him for the title.
Which could be Miro.
Could be Miro, could be Powerhouse Hobbs, could be any of the people that we've mentioned that isn't in this match, could be Roosh. So yeah, there are a lot of
Scorpio. I'm big on Scorpio. I want to see Scorpio Sky return.
Here comes Trench.
Yeah, I forgot. I had to think about that for a moment.
Who knows? It could be Captain Insano for all we know.
Yeah, I mean,
wouldn't hate it.
There's worse options. That's for sure. Like Trench.
Trench, yeah. So let's move on to a match that, judging by what Tony said earlier, I imagine this is something that he is totally aching to see. The AEW TBS Championship match between Jade Cargill and Ty Valkyrie, a rematch from a few weeks earlier. Yeah, this is a match that will happen. And
it sounds like you're aching to see it.
Well, I'm in two minds about it, because the one thing that this match has going for it, at least in my mind, and you two may may disagree or may not, but this is the first time in a while I think that she could potentially lose this title. And the reason I think that is because, and again, maybe it's just being influenced by reading what someone said on Twitter, but I occasionally just like to see people's thoughts on different aspects of wrestling and just follow it along. Basically, someone saying, because I'd been taking the mindset of, I think Chris Statlander's going to be the one to come back and beat Jade Cargill. But then I'm just realizing, oh yeah, she's like been injured like for the grand total of probably about a year and a half in the time she's been in AEW. And like, we can't just rely on her coming back and hitting her stride immediately over and over again. Like, sometimes you just need to go with someone else or change direction. And I think Taya is a good option to be the second TBS champion. She's obviously a powerhouse. She can match Jade physically. She obviously uses her finishing move as well, so there's that aspect of it. I think that she's popular. I think that she's experienced. It could be a fresh change of pace. She doesn't have to hold the title very long and transition it onto a heel potentially afterwards, but maybe it is about time to just end the Jade Cargill reign, and whatever they plan on doing with her, whether it's her taking a break or to eventually elevate her up to the World Championship. But my prediction is that I'm still going to go with Jade Cargill because it's just a safe bet, but I'm more 60-40 on it than I otherwise would be for other matches she's had in the past.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that it's just time. I don't think that they have utilized Jade enough to keep this belt on her. I want to see what someone else can do with it. They have the opportunity right now. I know it's not all about the competition, but they have the opportunity to be like, look at what you can do with women's wrestling and multiple women's champions at a time where both WWE and NXT are just like, I don't know what we're doing. Everything's up in the air. Let's get some new blood. Let's put a new focus on the belt. Let's have Taya as a defending champion, a fighting champion that can have great matches with anybody, instead of, okay, who can make Jade look the best during the Jade Cargill experiment? And she's looked great, and I did want to see her move up, but they've cooled her off so much at this point, in my eyes, that we need to kind of rebuild her in a way. So I'm ready to see Taya beat her.
See, I think that they've cooled Taya off considerably as well. I don't feel like she has any momentum that's heading towards like, okay, you know, they had their previous match and then that ended in a schmaz. So now we're going to come back around and it's going to be even stronger than before. Like, they lost that edge. Taya against Jade at first felt like maybe she's got a good chance of beating her. And then when they sidestepped, I don't think that they followed it up with anything, because Taya beating Lady Frost, does that really matter? She's not even in the company. Seems like they brought in an outsider to have Taya beat that person because they just wanted her to win to try to, I don't know, like see how she's
going into Sunday.
See, I wouldn't call it a strong one because the person's not even in the company. And if they would have had her beat, like, let's say she gets involved in the whole Outcasts thing and she gets a win over Ruby, then I'd go like, oh, they're doing something with her. Taya beating Lady Frost is basically the equivalent of if they would have just served like Abaddon up to her, or if they would have had her beat Sky Blue, or any of the people that typically pop up on like Ring of Honor, or that used to be on Dark, like like a Marina Shafir or something.
I think this is a good time to discuss the problem with this match and the problem with the Hardy thing. These are largely Rampage built stories, and nobody's cared about Rampage for a while. And with the announcement of Collision, it's become even less so.
Right.
And I think that's a huge problem with this story, is it's largely been built on Rampage, and let's just call a spade here, Tony. How much Rampage have you watched in the last month?
0.
All right. I mean,
I haven't watched
problem.
a minute of Rampage in the past month. And that's a huge part of that too. But then I also feel like maybe some of that isn't necessarily a lack of a build, but just the way that they approach a character like a Jade Cargill. Because look at Wardlow. Wardlow had that sort of Goldberg-esque booking, and he fell off too. Like, I think that they meaning Tony Khan and whoever else is in the creative capacity from the past few years and stuff, not necessarily
good with the build, they're not good with the follow-up.
Like they're good with building up somebody as like, oh wow, this person's becoming something, and then they don't really know what to do with them beyond that point, other than to just continue to have them not lose. Or if you're Wardlow, then you lose and you win it back, and then you lose and win it back, and do all that bullshit. But I think that Cargill is more so the experiment that you were talking about. This is another thing where Ty is there to be an experienced person who, she's a bigger woman, like, stature wise and everything, so that's a more impressive victory for Jade to beat her than to beat like a Layla Hirsch or Yuka Sakazaki or something. And then I think they'd only had really anything, the only real things that they brought to the table with this were Taya's a name, so that'll get people talking, and she's a fresh face, so that's another thing. They've got the finisher, and that's it. And Cargill beats her here because they probably have somebody in mind for her to fight a Forbidden Door. Maybe it's Mercedes, I don't know, depending on if she's injured.
Okay, so let's real quick on that. Tony Khan all but said, his exact phrasing were, only me and Mercedes know what was actually going to happen following the New Japan Strong Women's title match. So take that for what you will. But she is currently injured, so who knows how long it'll be.
So I think, gun to my head, I'm going to go Jade Cargill retains the title here.
You don't even need to put it to my head. I'm definitely going Cargill.
Gun to my head, I'll go Taya Valkyrie.
I just mentioned him quite a bit, so let's move on to Wardlow. Will be defending his AEW TNT Championship against Christian Cage in a ladder match. Christian Cage in a ladder match, that's typically a fun time. And I think this match will be pretty fun. Luchasaurus is going to get involved and get thrown around and smashed into a load of ladders. I imagine there's going to be at least 1 or 2 ladders breaking in this. And again, it's kind of difficult to call. I think I'm still going to go with Wardlow retaining, just because I don't think they can continually do the whole back and forth. Wardlow constantly loses as soon as he wins it back to the next challenger. But I mean, personally, I would really much like to see Christian Cage win, because I'm very much very lukewarm on Wardlow at the moment. So, but I think that Wardlow is the most likely one to get the victory. It gives him a solid win against a very established name, especially in Christian's kind of his standard match. So, but yeah, I'm just interested. I hope Christian doesn't get hurt as well. That's a big thing, because Wardlow's a big guy. I don't think it'll be anything due to Wardlow's inexperience, but it's just a case of he's a very powerful dude with a bunch of ladders flying around the place. So I hope Christian comes out of it in one piece, and personally, I would hope that he comes out with the title. But I think, as I said, I think that Wardlow will just hold on for it for a little bit longer.
I will piggyback right off what you said because I have the exact same feelings. I think it's going to be Wardlow, but I would much more prefer Christian Cage. I think Christian is an asset as a heel mid-card champion, and one of the biggest mistakes, because he always gets the comparison to Edge, I'll bring it up here. I think one of the biggest mistakes to the Edge comeback tour was not putting him in that championship position where he can establish how important it is to be champion, and Christian is of that same ilk that will make being champion so meaningful that when he loses it, it'll really feel devastating. So I'd like to see Christian Cage win, but I think I'm gonna go with Wardlow.
In a perfect world, in my mind, Wardlow spends the next, or he would have already been on the path for this, spends the next however many months to really pick up a lot of steam, and he's the one who beats MJF in 2024. But man, they were dropping the ball with him in so many different ways, and I don't think that Arn Anderson being by his side going, hey, I got 4 fingers holding up, this is reminding me of something. I don't think that that's really the way to fix all this. So I would be much more interested in Christian winning that belt, but I don't think it's happening because I think they're still on that mindset of TNT title is on Wardlow to keep him away from MJF and to make sure that he's always doing something.
Can I just say that Wardlow is still the last guy to pin MJF, and it's been a year at this point. A year ago at this time, the biggest talking point was, is MJF even going to show up to Double or Nothing? I think it's a mistake that they haven't even remotely said, hey, I want to fight Max. And at this point, maybe what Wardlow needs to do is lose, not get pinned because Christian just has to pull a belt down from while standing on a ladder, and then go, I lost, and that sucks. But I think it's time we address the elephant in the room, and I'm the only one who's pinned MJF in the last year. I need to beat him now.
I think just personally at the moment, just due to a lack of momentum or a lack of reaction, I think that Wardlow's currently in the position of challenging MJF, but it would be on a random episode of Dynamite, not on a pay-per-view. I think it's a mix of him losing a lot of steam and a lot of crowd response, and also due to the fact there's just so many people that are higher up in terms of star power and ability than Wardlow, that he can't realistically be the guy to beat MJF without it suffering some kind of backlash. So I think that right now he has to maintain holding the title and get into some actual feuds, because as much as I'm looking forward to the match because I think it'd just be very good, it's not been much of a feud leading up to it. So we need to see if he actually gets into a proper rivalry with someone over the title, and who would that end up being? I mean, Luchasaurus is an obvious option to just go. If Christian does lose, then Luchasaurus is right there to go after the title afterwards. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see where they go from there. But don't want to predict too far in the future because we still don't know who's going to win. But I'm still going to lean with Wardlow, as I said.
Definitely going Wardlow.
I'll be different. I'll go Christian.
So let's talk about this one. Is actually quite interesting. Maybe not for the reasons that for storyline reasons, but for real life reasons. Jamie Hayter versus Toni Storm for the AEW Women's World Championship. So, Rob, I'd like to turn to you immediately with this by some of the comments that Sean Ross Sapp said on the AEW post show for Fightful about Jamie Hayter's condition, basically saying that Jamie is hurt and that something is going to happen regarding he basically alluded to a winds of change happening for the women's division coming into and out of this show. So just as a means of reckless speculation, what do you think he's inferring with this winds of change approach?
Oh my God, I would imagine not only would there be some winds, but there might be a thunderstorm. Because who better to pick up the mantle of interim women's champion than Thunder Rosa, who left a year ago almost to make everything an interim women's title. And they did do earmuffs, children, if you don't want spoilers. They did do a gimmick on Rampage where the Outcast attacked Jamie Hayter and leave her laying. So it doesn't seem like they plan on having her wrestle. But my best guess would be Thunder Rosa's back.
So, do you think that this match is actually going to take place then?
Do I think that as advertised? No, I think Jamie's out.
So, if that's the case, so as obviously this is all based around what we know so far. For any company, regardless of like whoever it ends up being, I don't like changes made to an advertised card if you knew that you could change the card in advance or knew that you could announce something else happening, even if it's just a case of Toni Storm is now going to face ? For the interim women's championship or whatever. But if you know that Jamie Hayter is not going to wrestle, you should inform people that she's not going to wrestle. Mm-hmm. And again, even if that's with a couple of 24 hours notice, that's fine. But I certainly don't want them to go into this saying that this match is going to happen and then swerve us on it. Even if it is like Thunder Rosa or someone super exciting comes in place, it will still feel a little bit disheartening that they tried to pull the wool over your eyes. Not that I doubt how many people are tuning in just to see this match. And I was probably in the minority here in thinking that I was looking forward to this match because even though it's a rematch of something that we saw at Full Gear, these two are two of the best women's wrestlers in the company and I think in the world right now. And they had great chemistry and I thought they would have a really hard-hitting and fun match. But if Jamie's hurt, then she needs time to recover. And it seems like this whole speculation about what things are going, who could be joining, who could be going here or there. It's that's the more interesting thing because Toni, I know you've been a huge fan of this Outcast storyline. How disappointed are you that we're not going to see a conclusion to this in this title match?
Well, first things first, I didn't even know that Jamie Hayter was hurt.
What do you do? All right, can we, since Callum's leading the discussion and we don't have to make this awkward, can we just be serious? How much of Dynamite are you actually watching?
I'm skipping these segments entirely.
Yeah, so that's your problem.
Because I'm so sick and tired of it. And this is going to carry into the whole Thunder Rosa discussion. I've been sick and tired of this since it was Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. That's how long of this that I've been like, my God, it's the same people all the time. If it's, you throw in Ruby Soho and stuff and you go it changes it up. Not really, because she was one of the ones that they were sacrificing on the way to the whole Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker and all that stuff. So it's the same 6 people essentially over and over and over and over for a year plus or something. And I'm like, there's no value to me watching any of these segments anymore because I don't get anything more out of it. The Outcast cut a promo. It's nothing special. It's the same shit. Oh, they attack somebody. They spray paint somebody. Okay, I've seen it 11 times. The 12th time isn't going to be that much more different. So I've just bypassed this entirely. Now, if you say she's injured and they might switch it up, not only do I think that that's kind of a bad thing, I'm in agreement of if you're advertising something, you should do that unless the surprise is so much better that you can offset it. And I don't think Thunder Rosa is in that capacity. Already, if you're changing the Matt Hardy match, then you're going into that as why are you switching up the card at the last minute? But not that that's the biggest, most important thing in the world. If your big surprise is and then Thunder Rosa comes back, I'd be like, I don't care to see Thunder Rosa versus Toni Storm again either. I didn't think that they needed to do those.
Fought her. Did she fight her?
Or twice.
Yeah.
I thought that was the one where she refused to talk to
Forbidden Door.
Oh, that's right. And then they were supposed to do it again.
Yeah. Right, okay. So it was they were dragging that out to a certain.
They're going to do it again.
And then it's if that's oh, well, you get to see the thing that you saw no, I'd be more interested if it was okay, Jamie Hayter's hurt and we brought in somebody new. Then I'd be oh, now I'm interested. And if I'm watching 2 pay-per-views at the same time. I don't know what they're going to have on at the same time as Battleground, but if they've especially got like Dragunov versus Dijak and they're beating the hell out of each other and I'm watching that, I'm super into that. And then they go like, Jamie Hayter can't wrestle, but Britt Baker is going to take her place or something. Why would I bother to switch over and pay more attention to that one when I've seen it all before compared to whatever it is? I mean, maybe a Battleground, maybe they're just running a video package or something. I don't know. And then, of course, I'm going to pay more attention to this, but this isn't doing anything for me at its peak. And then you throw in a last minute switch up and that might be Thunder Rosa and that's your big thing. I'm not excited about that either. So I'm thinking, give the belt to Toni Storm, do the whole, we're giving the belt to the heels that are driving this story forward. And that makes her seem more important because she's been sort of taking a backseat to Saraya throughout this whole thing. And it offsets the interim title thing too, because that way she could be like, last time I held this belt, you were calling it an interim title. Now I'm your definitive champion. Screw you. We're back to square one. And I'll just be like, all right, when's that Anarchy in the Arena match coming up?
But that's all the more reason why, because outside of Thunder, who we know hasn't been around and is there, who else can they really bring in? Like who in your minds do you want to see brought in? Mercedes is hurt, otherwise, obviously, that would be my answer.
Yeah, the Mercedes injury kind of throws the spanner in those works. I mean, I'm aware that Yuka Sakazaki is coming to AEW full time now because she's done with Tokyo Joshi Pro. So, but that's obviously not at a high enough level. We've seen her enough, and she's kind of slotted in a position. Obviously, Athena is doing some great work, but she's the Ring of Honor Women's Champion. You don't really want to muddy the waters there.
And she's a heel, and she probably would work better as a part of the Outcasts anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are obviously names in Impact Wrestling that I'm aware of, but, they're signed with Impact Wrestling, so I don't assume that any of them are coming to AEW. I'm not aware of anybody.
Jordan Grace is free. Is she free? I think she might be free. Jordan Grace might be free.
I can't. No, again, it's just pure speculation. But that'd be great if that was the case because she's an awesome worker. But I think that there's nobody that I'm super aware of on the independent scene that I'm saying desperately would be the perfect replacement for Jamie Hayter.
I'm gonna do some quick research onto the status of Jordan Grace because that's the only other bring her in idea that I can think of.
But then again, would she necessarily do that, considering the whole Jonathan Gresham and Tony Khan stuff?
Mm-hmm.
She has her own life to live.
Still, that seems to be potentially one of the reasons why we didn't get Nick Aldis in WWE. And the whole Mickey James thing and all.
Yeah, there could be some other stuff. I don't know if any WWE women's wrestlers contract expires in the next day or two and can just hop straight over. But
it's not going to be Drew McIntyre or anybody.
No. He wears a kilt. It's close enough. But so it's almost kind of it feels just odd to try and make a prediction on this match because we don't even know if this match is happening. But I guess if the match happens or something in terms of a forfeit or along those lines, I guess I'll just go with Toni Storm wins the women's title here.
Same here.
I'm going to say Toni Storm is definitely the women's champion for a period of time on Sunday, May 28th. How about that?
Do you got a thunderstorm behind you, Rob?
I do. I'm about to close the window. Hold on.
Yeah. I didn't know if you were rustling a garbage bag or what was happening. I was thinking, are you really that out of this feud too that you're just sort of,
just throwing garbage? Yeah. So 4 more matches left to go. Still, God, it just feels like a lot even reading it, let alone just watch it as well. But some fun stuff still. But something that I'm kind of looking forward to, but at the same time, I want to broach out to a wider discussion as well. So we've got the tag team championships being defended. FTR will defend their titles against Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Mark Briscoe is going to be the special guest referee. Obviously, we're going to talk about this more on the hot tags, and I want to just bring up a little bit here about the signing of Aussie Open to AEW, just to add to another layer to this very stacked tag team division that AEW are building. But it kind of makes me think, as much as I've enjoyed them as a comedy act, Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal and the whole Sonjay and Satnam and that collective, are they really the right choice to be fighting for the tag titles and on this show? It's kind of like just a case of like maybe there are better options out there just in terms of match quality. But I do have to say that I think the build for this has been really good, and it's been effective in establishing the fact that Mark Briscoe is not happy with anybody, especially on the latest episode of Dynamite where he basically just slapped everyone in the face and walked out. So it means that doesn't have a side. It adds a bit of jeopardy to it. I'm still firmly going to say the FTR win and retain their titles here, but yeah, it should be a fun match. Should be a bit more of a classic old school type of match, but yeah, it's good. It's not like the peak of excitement, but I'm looking forward to it.
I pretty much echo exactly what you're saying. Like, this is a fun feud. They are a fun comedy thing. They're going to get served up to FTR, and FTR can have these other matches down the line with like Aussie Open and plenty other tag teams that'll give them maybe, you could say that Jarrett and Lethal are more comedy. They're still going to be able to have a good match too. So I wouldn't even say like, they're going to just move on to people that'll give them better matches. This should be fun. And the Mark Briscoe thing as a special guest referee, they did their whole, let's bring him in as clearly a friend of FTR, but now there's some issues between them to give you a little bit of, Mark Briscoe's not just entirely going to be siding with one team. And then eventually Briscoe's going to do the right thing and FTR's going to retain. But this should be a fun segment.
I like the way in the build up to it, in the segment they did on Dynamite this week, of how like Mark Briscoe came out to confront Dax for the pile driver that he took a couple of weeks back, and Dax basically just said, "Shake my hand and forget about it and let's move on." And so Mark just kept refusing to say, and Dax came across like pretty petulant about it. Like he just feels like, "Oh, what's a pile driver between friends?" That kind of that, like, it's a dangerous move. And the fact that he seemed quite incredulous that Mark just wouldn't accept his apology, I think that, I don't know, maybe I'm not necessarily suggesting this is the start of a potential heel turn for either of them, but it's quite interesting. They're adding that shade of grey to his character.
Well, I mean, who among us hasn't pile driven one of our friends? Yeah, on accident, of course.
I'm much more of a put somebody in a sharpshooter kind of guy.
I really think that with the amount of title shots that Jeff Jarrett has gotten since he arrived, that they really should have given it to them when they were feuding with the Acclaimed. I think that would have been a hot finish, and then they could have dropped it to FTR at some point. There's no way they're winning here. I can't imagine you end FTR's reign to put the belt on Jeff Jarrett. But I also kind of feel like, okay, as much as I enjoy him, can we kind of move away from Double J? He's been doing a lot. And it has to be believable. And at some point, I just don't think anybody believes that you're going to actually put a title belt on Jeff Jarrett in the year 2023. So, like you guys have said, fun match. Looking forward to Karen being involved. Looking forward to Sanjay, Satnam. They're all fun, but ultimately FTR has to win this thing.
So you're saying Jeff Jarrett should beat Jade Cargill?
I do think Jeff Jarrett has a better fan base in the TBS market, yes.
Well, anyway, let's move on from special guest referee to special guest enforcer.
What the fuck is this?
Yeah, I have that was not something I saw coming from a mile away.
So, this is a match that it's probably the match that I'm second most looking forward to out of all of them. It's Adam Cole versus Chris Jericho in an unsanctioned match. And they had a contract signing on the latest episode of Dynamite. and just out of the blue, they said, okay, no one wants to kind of referee or control this because it's been such a violent feud spilling out all over the arenas and everywhere. So we need to get a guest enforcer in, and who better than Sabu?
What?
A guy who, as far as I'm aware, has never interacted with either of these two men in their entire.
Nope.
I mean, maybe had a random backstage segment in ECW with Chris Jericho, like in Sabu, but I don't think they've ever had a match. Either of them have ever had a match. I mean, it'd be very unlikely Adam Cole would have ever had a match with Sabu, but maybe on the indie somewhere. But yeah, it's a bit of an odd choice. I'd say an odd choice. I guess he fits the whole unsanctioned aspect of it, but yeah, it adds a bit of a spanner in the works of what was otherwise just a really well-built, put-together blood feud between these two. When you've had like the great segment of Britt Baker being beaten down by the Outcasts, like with kendo sticks, while Adam Cole's like handcuffed to the ropes, and watching that take place. They've had the brawls on in the announce table while he's at Rampage, and Adam Cole getting banned from the building, and the match between Roderick Strong and Chris Jericho, the Falls Count Anywhere match, which was great. And I thought the contract signing was actually a lot of fun as well. Like Jericho constantly jibing at Cole, saying that he's a coward and that he won't hit him, even though he's still taunting him about the Britt Baker stuff. And yeah, I've really, really enjoyed the feud. I just don't understand why they need to have Sabu involved in it.
Can I just be frank and don't make any stupid jokes, Tony?
Frank, deeply.
Hey, Frank.
This is the most TNA thing I've ever seen AEW do in my life, and they have Jeff Jarrett. Why the fuck is Sabu in this thing? They're not in Philly. There's nothing here that says, you know what? Sabu. Like, I love these men. You know for a fact I love Adam Cole and Chris Jericho. I like the fact that they're having a hardcore match. Why is Sabu here? Like,
so you know what's funny about that is I'm trying to find who said it, because it's like I would call them out and be like, what? I had seen something online about somebody who knows Chris Jericho very well, and I was like, I thought the same thing that you guys did. I was like, did they even have a match? So I looked it up. If you go on Cage Match and you type Sabu and to have another worker be Chris Jericho, so keep in mind, this is any match in any promotion in any capacity that they were both involved in. That includes Royal Rumble matches and shit. There is one result. It's an ECW event from August 2nd, 1996 that Sabu beat Jericho. So this isn't like a bringing in like Hoovy or Ray or somebody that like, you know, had an established feud with Chris Jericho even back to decades where a lot of people that will be watching wouldn't know. But you're right about like, they're not in Philly. Sabu was born in Staten Island and is billed as being from Detroit. So this isn't like, oh, you're bringing him in because he's a big Las Vegas guy. What is the purpose of this? Sabu has no connection whatsoever to them.
So, and let's talk about how they introduced him as well, because it really felt like Jericho's going, yeah, you have the numbers advantage. And Adam Cole's like, yeah, I know. You don't think I've thought about that? And I'm just immediately like ready for Kyle O'Reilly to just pop up and beat the shit out of people. And he brings out Sabu, and you're like, all right, Sabu is going to be in Adam Cole's corner. Weird. And they announced that he's the enforcer. Like, okay, first things first, 2.0 are going to take an Arabian facebuster through a table. Mm-hmm. That's going to happen, but like...
Also, is he supposed to offset like 4 people? Because it's Adam Cole and Roderick Strong against Chris Jericho, Daniel Garcia. I mean, Sammy Guevara has not really been a part of this anyway, but technically speaking, Sammy Guevara, Ty, Anna Jay, they are a part of it. Jake Hager, Angela Parker, Matt Menard.
He's genocidal after all.
That's like, it's still one-sided here, pal. You're not bringing in... Maybe if they would have gone in this direction, if they would have said like, okay, this is... because I'm already confused. Why is this an unsanctioned match instead of a lights out match or something? But that's because they don't want to put it at the end of the card. If you were to go with like, this is going to get so extreme that we need to bring extreme people in, and you brought in a lot of ECW guys like a Tommy Dreamer and Sabu and Rob Van Dam and all, then I could understand it. To be like, I brought in these right, there's that too. But like, I could understand bringing in the extreme guys and be like, they know what it's like to have this like crazy environment and they're comfortable in it, so they're going to be the dividing line. But just Sabu? I don't know. I don't get it. That really confused me.
So I'm going to be honest. Mick Foley on his podcast recently stated that he wishes Sabu got his flowers. And the first thing I thought of was, did Tony just hear that and go, you know what? Let's bring in Sabu. Like, because he's already said, by the way, it's going to be a one-off.
Yeah, he does have that little bit about him, doesn't he? Just occasionally. I never got to book Sabu. Sabu's cool. I watched ECW, but let's just bring him in for this one.
He talks about how his father brought him to an ECW event, and I wonder, is that the event where Sabu fought Jericho? That's just like stuck in his mind. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And what's worse is it's detracting from what honestly should be a bell-to-bell banger. Can we go back last year and get Lionheart Jericho back and have him put on a match with Adam Cole? Because that's the match I want to see. They did a good job of making it a personal issue, but Jericho has this thing that he does. He did it with Punk in WWE, where it's like, hey, I know you're all looking forward to us just wrestling, so I'm going to make this the most personal thing, and we're not even going to exchange holds. Because up yours. It's not what I wanted, but I'm still going to love it because it's Adam Cole on pay-per-view, and Sabu's here too. Adam Cole wins.
So, Adam Cole on pay-per-view and Sabu's here too. It sounds like a Dr. Seuss thing. I'm going to go Adam Cole wins as well. I think that this kind of should just cap it all off, and then they should move on.
Yeah, I think it's been it's kind of like one of those worst kept secrets that Adam Cole is probably one of the next people in line for MJF. So I think that you need to give him the victory here to build him up towards that. So yeah, I'll go with Adam Cole, get the victory as well. And it's unsanctioned, so technically it doesn't count, even though it's not a lights out match.
They're really liking the unsanctioned thing in wrestling these days.
Yeah, it seems to be coming back into fashion. It would kind of feel like it's a hardcore match. We should move on to the other hardcore match on the show. But I personally want to talk about the match which I'm less excited for than what I believe should be the main event. So let's talk about the four-way match for the AEW World Championship, with MJF defending against the other members of the Four Pillars, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, and Jungle Boy Jack Perry. No, it's not worked for me. I'm not. I was super excited about the Four Pillars in that first segment they put together, and pretty much everything they've done in the month and a half and 2 months after that has soured me quite a lot on it. I think I can't believe the hatchet job that's been done on Jack Perry in this entire feud. I mean, the other two, it's kind of okay. Darby's Darby, and I think he kind of has that Survivor, the whole like Daredevil gimmick down, and it works. And Sammy's always going to be like a punchable heel, that type of thing. Like the guy that's, and even though he's portraying more of a babyface thing now, it kind of feels, you can kind of tell that it's meant to be disingenuous. So, and MJF's great. We all know how great MJF is, but it's Jack Perry who's been the real black sheep of this whole feud, because he was coming off that big cathartic victory over Christian at Revolution, which was like such a great match. They felt, okay, that's a great launch pad for him towards a championship. And so they put him in this Four Pillars thing, which is, again, it's thematic because MJF's the champion. You probably should do this match at some point. I just assumed it was going to be some TV thing. I didn't expect it to be the headliner for Double or Nothing. And the build towards it has just been weird, and like it's a whole like, can they coexist, and like rigging a tournament, and going from a potential one-on-one match between MJF and Sammy Guevara to a fatal four-way, and these weird, like, bad promo segments between anybody that's not MJF. Yeah, it just hasn't worked for me. I'm far less excited for it than I was when they first presented the idea that this was going to happen. And I don't really know how you'd salvage some of, especially Jack Perry after this, when they inevitably lose because MJF's not dropping the title here. So they're going to have to do some rebuild work after this, I believe.
I feel like there are so many different ways that you could have booked this, and almost all of them would have been better. They could have done MJF versus Jack Perry on an episode of Dynamite, and then MJF against Darby on an episode of Dynamite, and MJF against Sammy on an episode of Dynamite, and then all three of them are like, yeah, let's have the four-way match. They could have done that. The three of them need to score a bunch of victories, like a point system tournament thing. They could have done something like that, where it's like, all right, each one of them, every week, all three of them compete, and whoever has the most amount of wins leading up to MJF's number one contender is the one that's going to do that. So that way it's like, okay, Jack loses a match against somebody like Arush or somebody, and then look at that, he's one below Sammy and Darby because they both won their first matches on the first week leading up to this. And then it's almost kind of what they've done with MJF before, where you go through a gauntlet and stuff, but it's not quite you have to beat all these to become my guy. It's just we're trying to set that like ranking thing up again. Could have gone in that direction, and then it turns out, oh, look at that, by the end of the setup, all three of them have the same amount of points. It's going to be a four-way. What? The four pillars? Wow, the crazy. And then the week of, you go with the one promo about the four pillars. And you do everything that they needed to. You just 100% throw it all in there. Because dragging this out the way that they've done has just made Jack Perry seem like a whiny little bitch. Darby Allin's going out there as either somebody who, I don't know if he's having an asthma attack or he is just too excited to talk, but the whole like promo he had where that he said was like that, it was like that's not good. And then this week he comes out with like stilts on practically, and I'm like, that's not a good look for you either. And Sammy's whole heel face switch over, that hasn't been good either. So all of them look so much worse than if you would have just even said, we're not going to build this, we're just going to say it's those four against each other. Wait a couple weeks and we'll run video packages about how talented they are. The match is still going to be great though. Like,
yeah, that's the one thing, that these four are going to put on an absolute banger to try and make up for the lackluster build. So
right.
I have no doubt that this is going to be one of the best matches on the entire show. Just it's been a bit of a disappointment leading up to it. Yeah, it's like Sasha Banks, Bianca Belair territory. Like like crappy build. You're going to get a great match out of it. So you can kind of get some kind of balance. You just wish it was overall great.
Yeah, I think they are going to save it because the match is going to be fucking tremendous, and then no one's going to care. It hasn't been my favorite build, but I also think that they needed this. They really needed to do this because there's a contingency of people, none of whom are on this podcast, but there are people who are just like, well, why don't they just do stuff with the younger people? And it's like, yeah, this is why you'd much rather CM Punk versus MJF main event, or Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson again. Do the other guys matter? Absolutely. And I think that they've all shown in their own ways that they do. But ironically, it's their differences in the way they've been built to this moment that has kind of placed them exactly where they are in this story. Jungle Boy comes off looking like crap because Jungle Boy's barely cut promos. And all the promos he's had to cut have been, yeah, well, guess what? Your wife divorced you because you have a small dick. And it's like, how can he compete with MJF? Darby is Darby. He's pretty solid because he's kind of like Jeff Hardy in that he can ramble, but it's okay because he's Darby and the aura fits. Sammy's basically been the guy who was, what do you call himself? The job guy of the inner circle. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of what you did. But as a result, you have a better charisma about you and you're going to be able to flip and fly and you'll do great. Of course, Jungle Boy looks like shit. And Max comes off genuinely bored with it. I do know people that are completely sick of the whole 2024 gimmick. That's not me, but I am saying I want MJF to kick it into high gear with some of his next defenses because we're all in agreement he's not losing here.
Yeah, there's no way he's losing.
No.
So I want to see him start to face some people that matter. Like, let's get him back in the ring with. Have you been in the ring with Kenny yet? Maybe that's where he needs to go next, or relatively soon. I think he needs to be in the ring with, maybe not Bryan because it did 60 minutes, but names that are going to push him, names that are going to elevate him to a new level. Because right now, as is the case because he's been booked that way, he's on a completely different plateau than all of these other people. And it comes off as a mismatch. And it's been a very boring story. And it doesn't help that you've got the best faction warfare storyline in years building right underneath it.
That Adam Cole MJF feud is going to be much better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it has just established that if these four did grow up as like the pillars of AEW, then one of them is like holding the place up a lot more than the rest of them are, which is funny because that's the one that is also the most likely to disappear at some point. So, yeah, I think that we've all said it. MJF's going to win this match, and hopefully there's some good rebuild work after this on like restoring the credibility of the others once they eventually lose, because it hasn't been, the most effective build up for it. But a match that has been built up very, very well, and that's, I think I'm speaking out of turn, but I think we're probably all the most excited for this match in particular.
Totally.
Anarchy in the Arena, Blackpool Combat Club, Bryan Danielson, John Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta versus The Elite, Kenny Omega, The Bucks, and Hangman Adam Page. Oh wow, this is gonna be crazy. And
this should absolutely be closing the show.
This is potential match of the year caliber, I think.
Yeah, this should be closing.
Yeah, and it should close because it also, beyond just the fact that these are 8 great wrestlers and they're going to be fighting all over the arena, I'm kind of hoping that, they do the same thing last year where Wild Thing is playing for a long time. I saw someone do that, and then the Bucks start playing the Macarena or something instead over the top of it, just to add that little bit of comedy before they then start, absolutely killing each other. But it's also the match that has the biggest potential for surprises and different things happening outside of, just the result of the match. Like, again, there's a lot of speculation surrounding Kota Ibushi and yeah. Obviously, I'd say like he's necessarily going to debut on this one, but that's a big thing that people are just waiting for. When's Kota going to show up in AEW? And yeah, so there's the Don Callis element to that as well. And is he going to get involved in this? And yeah, it's just there's a lot going on outside of just the fact that this is just going to be an absolutely killer match, and it's also probably the hardest one to predict as well, because there really is no wrong answer about who wins this, because they could extend it out even further. But yeah, I'm personally at the moment leaning towards the Elite, just because it's the feel-good story of them being back together, and I don't think that there is immediate plans for this to continue at least into Forbidden Door, because of other plans that have been kind of touted around involving some competitors involved in this that doesn't involve them fighting each other. So yeah, I'd say especially if you are main eventing, you end off on like a really positive note by giving the Elite the victory.
I would prefer this to main event. I do not think it will, but I would like to say BCC wins because of something Don Callis does, leading us to the eventual blood and guts cage match where the Elite can finally compete in a proper blood and guts and get the win like they were supposed to with the Inner Circle 3 years ago. How scary is that to say out loud? It's going to be the best match. I haven't looked forward to a match this much in a long time, and yeah, I want to see them kill each other. Like I really just want to see these four guys absolutely batter and bloody each other. I'm glad they didn't add Takeshita. I'm glad they didn't add Ibushi. We've spent way too much time away from the Elite in all Elite wrestling, and them finally coming together as a united front feels so right to me.
Well, you mentioned Takeshita. Now, I could see a scenario here based off of the, potential plans that they might do, at least based off of previous years. They've deviated from this already, but when I look at the 2023 schedule of events and 2022 and 2021 and all, they bypassed Beach Break. They never did that in January or February like they've done, but they've fit everything else the way that they've normally done. Road Rager should be somewhere around the corner if they continue with what they did the last year and such before Forbidden Door. And if Jamie Hayter is injured, then I don't think that we're going to get that blood and guts match that I was thinking that we would get, which, we go back to the idea of like, I was kind of hoping that Jade Cargill would be one that would be like part of the AEW Originals crew, and then that could balance things out and we could do all that. I don't think we're going to get that at this point, but I think that you want to move on before Forbidden Door and Fighter Fest and Fight for the Fallen and all these things that lead into All In August. I am thinking we're going to get that blood and guts match between Double or Nothing and Forbidden Door. And if we get that with this crew, a good way of doing it, I think, could be Takeshita interferes here and he helps the Blackpool Combat Club win. And then on the next episode of Dynamite or the episode after that or, whatever it might be, then you get Kota Ibushi coming in as the guy that offsets him and we get the 5-1-5. I'm leaning a little bit more towards Blackpool Combat Club.
I think, I'm still going to stick with the Elite, but I think a name that also is not being brought up, especially, again, just tying back to the whole Aussie Open now signing with AEW, is will Ospreay potentially get involved in this as well? Because I think it's pretty evident, at least if you'd been following the New Japan side of things as well, in that Don Callis is talking to Will Ospreay as the guy that he sees as the future, the guy that he's turned his back on Kenny Omega for. So maybe there's some potential there, because at Dominion, coming up for New Japan, there was going to be Will Ospreay versus Lance Archer, and the winner will be the next number one contender for Kenny Omega's IWGP US Championship. So if that's and the speculation is suggesting, again, it's just speculation at the moment, but speculation is suggesting that two of the matches that are going to be taking place at Forbidden Door are Omega and Ospreay 2 for the championship, and John Moxley versus Kazuchika Okada in a one-on-one match. So, as I say, you want to build up both guys potentially for it, but maybe you build up the Ospreay and Omega match by having him cost Omega the match here. I still think that, especially, as I say, if you are main eventing with this, then I don't see the reason why you can't just have a happy ending to follow it. But they had the heels team won the first Anarchy in the Arena match, so they might follow suit on this one. I don't know if we're going to see anything as visceral as like Eddie Kingston walking down covered in blood with like gasoline in his hands. But we might get something that extreme.
He still does it anyway, even if he's not involved in this feud. He just pops up and they're just like, Eddie, what the fuck are you doing?
I mean, the whole thing also, that this whole feud, beyond just the whole reforming of the Elite and just the violence surrounding it, one of the biggest things this whole match has been built around is screwdrivers.
That's true. So, there's been a lot of that, yeah.
So how does the screwdriver play into this match?
Hey, I think it screw drives into somebody.
Do you think they all come to the ring wielding screwdrivers?
Yeah,
have a lightsaber battle with screwdrivers.
As long as you put Duel of the Fates to it.
Yeah,
Even better.
But
Oh God, they would totally do all 8 men have screwdrivers, and they just do the Sammy and Kevin punch spot.
they just run at each other with screwdrivers.
Yeah, they would do that. Kids, don't try this at home, but they would really. I kind of talked myself into that being a spot in the match now.
But either way, I think this is going to be so much fun to watch, and whoever wins or loses, I'm going to be almost super happy to see this. And I think this is the match that most people are buying Double or Nothing for. So hopefully it does deliver, but I have no doubt, considering the people involved, that it will. And I think this is an early match of the year candidate for AEW. But as I say, we'll reflect on that and see whether we come away disappointed on the post show. But that's our Double or Nothing. Well, actually, just to round it off, my final prediction is the Elite. You two are both going for Blackpool Combat Club, right?
Yes.
Definitely, yeah. BCC is going to win this one.
Okay, but that rounds off our Double or Nothing predictions. And excited for the show on Sunday. It's the first out of 4 shows that I might end up watching at the weekend, so that's going to be a big one. To be fair, I'm not going to watch NXT, so it's just I'm going to be watching this. So it's it's definitely the one I'm most excited for, though. So
real quick on the NXT, you're going to go back and watch Dijak and Dragunov, right?
If it's good.
I just assume that it's going to be absolutely great.
If you guys say on the post shows they absolutely shat the bed for some reason or something, or Dragunov's leg fell off before the match started and so they didn't even do it or something. So, but
there's some sort of dragging the leg, Dragunov off joke here. I'm not able to formulate it, but there's something out there for anybody who's like, why didn't you jump on that?
But if that's good, then I might just revisit that one. But I'm definitely going to have my full undivided attention on Double or Nothing for this for on Sunday night. But it's a big weekend of wrestling, so hopefully everyone enjoys it. And I guess I'll pass the reins back over to you for the plugs, Tony.
Let me go catch that baton. I'm still seeing it flying in the air.
Reins, not baton.
That's why I can't see it.
I kept the baton. I kept the baton.
It's yours now. So of course, as we normally do here, we've got the post show coming immediately following this event, because it seems like this is probably going to last way past NXT Battleground. So we will talk both Battleground and Double or Nothing on Sunday night. And naturally, when it comes to the Night of Champions stuff, we'll be doing that afterwards. So whether you are interested in the Double or Nothing stuff, which I'm assuming so because you clicked on this, or you are more interested in our Battleground breakdown or Night of Champions, that's all coming up this weekend. It's going to be a lot of content to break down. So many different pay-per-view points this week. But in the meantime, go to smarkoutmoment.com and make sure you're following on Facebook and Twitter at smarkoutmoment, and make sure that you are set up with all of your subscriptions and email alerts and following the feed if you do that, like the RSS feed. I don't know if anybody does that anymore, but it's an option that's on there. And you've got things set up like your YouTube stuff, so that way you can just hop right on and be a part of that. Also, one of the things that I don't know if I've ever addressed this on the air or anything, but the only way to chat in the live chat on YouTube, I have it set up that you have to subscribe to the channel. So if you find yourself in a way that you are trying to chat and you're like, oh, this message isn't going through, just click the subscribe button. It's not the same as the join button. It's not like you can only chat if you are, paying for it or anything, but you get a little icon if that's the case. So if you're one of those people that's like, yeah, I really want to help them out, and I also want to show off a little bit of that internet clout, then that's another good way of doing that. But that stuff is all marketplace related material that I've already mentioned before. One of the things I haven't mentioned before is the sister website to this whole thing, Fanboys Anonymous. So if you go to fanboysanonymous.com, you'll see all of the geek culture related stuff beyond pro wrestling. There's a lot of discussion going on right now about some different things like, hey, Batista is in the top movie with Guardians of the Galaxy, and John Cena is in the Fast X movie and all. I talked a little bit about Guardians already. I have not watched any of the Fast and Furious movies, but hey, if you want to sponsor something like that, we got a Patreon over there, patreon.com/fanboysanonymous. So if you want to get, I don't know, do you do one a month or something, or maybe quadruple up on the pick your poison tier or whatever, the Fast movies or something that's a blind spot for me. been watching a lot more stuff. Like I watched Roadhouse recently, watching a lot of like those shitty 80s kind of movies that are really funny. Been kind of on that kick. So any of that stuff you'll find on fanboysanonymous.com. Something else you'll find on Fanboys is the Blueprint Project. I'm working so much on all these different things that you can see up on your screen and elsewhere. And if you want more information on that front, then let me know. Go to those videos for things like Absolute Power Rangers, A Mighty Morphin Epic. And man, I can tell you that I am probably about 75% done Chapter 4 of the Batman and Nighttime Story 100 Records from the Wayne Foundation Archives. This is coming along where some of the stuff that's throwing me off is I'm trying to find the right music for things and captivate the right mood for a very, very moody piece for this one. There's a lot of like, this is deep, this is heavy kind of stuff in that. So if you're excited for more of the Batman stuff, you'll find that. And obviously, if you go to amangotree.com or anthonymango.com, you'll see all the different things that are all the branches under A Mango Tree. So water those roots by following and liking and sharing and subscribing to all those good things there, including my personal accounts at Toni Mango.
Yep, and you can follow me, Rob, at Dude Felice everywhere. Check out my work on Fightful and WrestleZone, especially this weekend, because there's going to be so much shit. You can check out my personal socials. I haven't done anything on Twitch in a very long time, mostly because the game that I was playing was a live service game and it basically got shut down. So eventually I'll do something with Twitch. Of course, I appreciate anyone that follows me on Twitter. I know I recently got a nice message from someone saying that I have inspired them because I do the disability representation thing. Things like that are always nice to hear, and that keeps the lights on in a different way, so we always appreciate stuff like that. But for now, I toss you over to Cal Muggins.
So you can find me on Twitter at Wingmeister14. If you would rather be told about which wrestlers in WWE are doing well rather than watching the show yourself and make your own judgments, then there's the Power Rankings over on smark@moment.com, where I will tell you who exactly is doing well based on their current results and standings there. So check that out. And you also find on smark@moment.com or www.fantasyleague.com the Fantasy League, which is entering it's in the formative stages right now. There's still a lot to play for, but things will change up following Night of Champions, where we'll be adding to our teams, and one lucky person will have the opportunity to swap out someone that they're having a bit of buyer's remorse of selecting in the draft from their initial draft. So yep, follow that along, and on the post show we'll discuss what changes and updates we're making to those teams.
So much more content coming your way with that. And then, of course, we are going to follow up all of the pay-per-view stuff from this week with different things like, we've got some plans for some different Darkcast ideas for June. We got the potential that we might do something King of the Ring based, despite the fact that they didn't do King of the Ring. I still kind of want to go back and maybe I might do that as a Darkcast. Maybe I'll like fantasy book an Ultimate King of the Ring or something. I don't know. We were thinking about doing a fantasy booking combo Money in the Bank card thing, maybe. There's Forbidden Door, of course, coming up towards the end of June. So we got that. We got Money in the Bank itself. So we might watch another Money in the Bank thing, another fan announce table. And if you have any suggestions of like which Money in the Bank match you might want us to check out, keep that in mind too. We've got the ideas of just, blank weeks of, whatever your suggestions are. We might get around to doing those things. I don't know. All a little bit up in the air for now, but at least the next thing you're going to be listening to on this is going to be the hot tags. So tomorrow we'll be recording that. We'll address anything else that we need to talk about that happened on the TV stuff and other rumors and news and gossip and such. And if they change anything else on these pay-per-views, we'll talk about them too. So yeah, we'll do that. Come back around for Night of Champions and then Battleground and Double or Nothing. But in the meantime, thank you for listening to this, everybody, and we will see you next time. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.